came across this randomly. This was in 2018. And this is from Rabbi Shmuley, which is pretty interesting, who has connections to Miriam Adelson. She has connections to this guy as well. We just talked about Miriam Adelson on Tuesday. But Rabbi Shmuley here is with PayPal founder, of course, and Palantir co-founder, Peter Thiel, who gave a fascinating speech about the uselessness of college at a TPUSA rally. This was in 2018. Pretty fascinating. Also in 2018, pretty interesting, Turning Point USA announces U.S. Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos as a speaker of the 2018 High School Leadership Summit. We've talked about Betsy DeVos in the past because she is the sister to one Eric Prince. If you guys don't know Eric Prince, he's the one that created Blackwater, the private security firm. He's the one who's involved with Israeli surveillance technology. He's the one that's involved with the wellness company and all that type of stuff. I've got an entire deep dive surrounding all of this on my channel. Just go onto my channel, down to deep dives, and you'll find one that has a big title. It says Carbine on it. Go watch that if you want to know more about it. But Betsy DeVos is also connected to this. Eric Prince, and they're involved with the immigration thing. He wants to do private contracting for immigration with Trump and everything like that. If we take a look at the financials of Turning Point USA, we jump down, funding. Richard and Helen DeVos Foundation, run by the in-laws of former Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, are funders of Turning Point. So there should be no surprise there. Now, this is where we start getting into some interesting connections on this. We go to the Turning Point USA team and we look at their advisory council. There's a lot of faces and a lot of names that we probably wouldn't know, maybe some that we do know, so on and so forth. But there's one here called Craig Jensen. He's an advisory council member for Turning Point USA. Who is Craig Jensen? Well, we go to his website. I am asked about Scientology all the time. I enjoy talking about it, but my simple answer is it works. I became active in Scientology in 1974. I recommend that you read Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health or Self-Analysis by L. Ron Hubbard. So they have a Scientologist on the advisory board for Turning Point USA. Well, we know that Turning Point USA is a hodgepodge, a conglomerate of ecumenical faith movements. You got to pretty much take a pick of what you believe and what faith you want, and they're involved with that. But Scientology is pretty fascinating. Now, if we look further into some lawsuits against Craig Jensen, it's pretty fascinating. This is a lawsuit from 1994. It's Craig Jensen and Sally Jensen, who are getting sued by Donna L. Page. Executive Software North America Inc., Craig Jensen and Sally Jensen are the petitioners for this, and they're getting sued by Donna Page, who filed a complaint in state court against them because she claimed to have experienced several acts of discrimination during her employment with Executive Software. Specifically, Page alleged that the company required all its employees to study the teachings of the Church of Scientology written by L. Ron Hubbard. So when he was the CEO of this company, he was forcing his employees to study Scientology, and if they did not, they would get fired, at least according to this one lawsuit, which you might look and go, that could probably be fringe. But the problem is there was another lawsuit a little bit later by two people who were also fired for not studying Scientology. It says two fired for not becoming Scientologists. This is the former CIO at Diskeeper, which is the name change from executive the other company that we just read. It's the same company. Dishkeeper has filed a lawsuit claiming that his work forced him to take Scientology training courses in order to keep the job at Dishkeeper. Alexander Gottleman and Mark Lichet were both dismissed at their job for refusing to participate in a training course titled Basic Study Manual, where both employees were told that they would be more intelligent and his personal life would improve drastically. Gottleman filed a complaint with the Los Angeles Superior Court stating that Scientology training was a condition of employment, and the refusal to take part in the training session led to their dismissal. Gottleman was told that his presence at the training courses was non-negotiable from Dishkeeper CEO and Chairman Craig Jensen. So now we've got multiple lawsuits from multiple people, all claiming that Craig Jensen is forcing his employees to study Scientology. This is the same one, just a little bit more information. It says 2 ex-employees of Dishkeeper have sued the firm over allegations that were obliged to take part in Scientology training courses as a mandatory condition of employment. Dishkeeper founder and chief executive Craig Jensen is committed Scientologist who allegedly told Gottleman, who is Jewish, that his attendance at Scientology-based courses was non-negotiable while talking up to the supposed benefits of the course. Lichet refused to attend the course, and Gottleman's support of his stance ultimately led to the dismissal of the duo, the lawsuit alleges. The suit claims unspecified damages as well as injunction that would prevent Disc Lab from making attendance at Hubbard study technology courses compulsory. So multiple. So my point on this is if you have somebody who is head CEO of a company that was forcing people to take Scientology courses, to study Scientology in order to keep employment, you're telling me that he doesn't have that same idea when he's on the advisory council board of Turning Point USA? So we got some influence happening there. That's not all. If we take a look at this is the America Fest 2025 Turning Point that's throwing this. Some of the speakers on this thing. Ay, man. You just look at some of the speakers on this thing. Tucker Carlson, of course. Steve Bannon. It was as bad as they come. Keep in mind, Steve Bannon is the dude that was trying to help Epstein clear up his public image, if you guys don't know. Donald Trump Jr., Tulsi Gabbard's there, Ramaswamy's there, Jesse Waters, the clown's there, Shapiro, Megyn Kelly, who just came out in defense of Epstein, if you guys don't know. She's trying to clarify that because Epstein was only sleeping with girls that were 14 years or older, that doesn't necessarily make him a pedophile. Yeah, she was going with that. Glenn Beck, we know him. Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Russell Brand, Rob Schneider, Ben Carson, Ali Stuckey, Sean Duffy, Danica Patrick, who's a New Ager. Like, she's all wrapped up in New Age. Pretty fascinating. Benny Johnson. Riley Gaines is fascinating. If you guys don't know, Riley Gaines, she's married to an immigrant who doesn't have a green card, but yet he hasn't been deported. Wonder why that is. Interesting. And a whole bunch of other people. Frank Turek, Jack Posobiec, Jentison Franklin, and so on and so forth. Lucas Miles, we talked about him and all that type of stuff. But the one that I want to point out is this guy. Grant Cardone. Anybody heard of Grant Cardone? It's a name that I wasn't really aware of until I started looking into this. Let's take a look at Grant Cardone, shall we? Here's Grant Cardone. He was interviewed by, this is on Charlie Kirk's channel. This was 7 months ago. It's actually fascinating. I don't know if you guys can see that, but he has an advertisement in his thing. It says, become a premium member with Angel Studios Guild. Angel Studios, of course, we know, we've talked about them, their connection to Mormonism and all the ecumenical false religion stuff that they're doing in regards to that. But let's get back on track here. Charlie Kirk had Grant Cardone on his channel, interviewed him. Of course, he was going to be speaking at the event. Grant Cardone has a company called 10X or X10, one of those, vice versa, which way. But it's all about, you can advance your career and you can be wealthy and you can own all this stuff and everything like that and everything like that. Charlie Kirk participated with some of his events as well. But the thing with Grant Cardone is Grant Cardone and Scientology. Yes. He says, I am a proud parishioner of the Church of Scientology, like so many millions of other Scientologists around the world who use Scientology to improve their life. Not only is this dude a Scientologist, but he is the highest ranking Scientologist that you could be. Like, he's top level that you can get. So he's not just some fringe dude. This dude is big time Scientology. Not only that, I grew up Catholic in Lake Charles, Louisiana, where I went to church with the family every Sunday and attended Catholic schools. I still practice my Catholic upbringing today. Because over my 60 years, I have prayed in Christian churches, mosques, synagogues, Buddhist temples, and yes, at Scientology churches. It says, I have studied Scientology for 20 years and have been using many of the practical applications taught by the non-denominational Church of Scientology. I know people who study Scientology who are Jewish, Baptist, Catholic, Protestant, and Muslim. While Catholicism is my faith-based religious upbringing, Scientology is an implied religion for handling the day-to-day issues in life. As I was first introduced to Scientology by the way of the book Dianetics, written by L. Ron Hubbard, the same book that Craig Jensen recommended for people to get hooked on Scientology as well. So we got Craig Jensen, who's advisory board for TPUSA. We've got Grant Cardone, who's connected in many ways to Charlie Kirk and going to speak at his events and so on and so forth. Also, if you guys don't know Grant Cardone, he's a shyster. He's a scam artist. Financial influencer Grant Cardone says he can make you a billionaire. His investors claim that he defrauded them. Mounting legal troubles against the social media phenomenon have not stopped him from continuing to promote questionable business ventures to his millions of followers. We also got this. This is Grant Cardone's consultancy scam, cult-like behavior, and legal issues. Grant Cardone is a multimillionaire real estate mogul, sales trainer, and social media influencer with millions of followers across platforms like Instagram and YouTube. He preaches a message of extreme wealth, materialism, hustle culture, and disregard for work-life balance. Cardone's enterprise has destroyed businesses and plunged clients deeply into debt, according to interviews with former employees, poor clients, and business school professors. But we want to jump down to his business and Scientology connections. While Cardone insists his programs have nothing to do with the Church of Scientology, many have drawn parallels between their similar coaching models and indoctrination tactics. Namely, both Scientology and Cardone rely on an authoritative cult leader, income from expensive courses, getting members to recruit family and friends, and isolating members from outside views. In fact, Cardone openly admits basing parts of his sales training programs on L. Ron Hubbard's teachings, the founder of Scientology. So not only is his entire business model and wealth structure scamming people out of money, but on top of that, he teaches it exactly how Scientology teaches their people as well, using the same tactics for both. It's a gigantic cult, to say the least. Especially since both Scientology and Cardone promise impossible, almost magical results. That's pretty funny, magical, because it's mysticism. If you just hand over all your money and do whatever they tell you. Other bizarre parallels include allegations of Grant Cardone tracking employees on secret cameras and microphones around his offices, monitoring phone logs, enforcing strict codes of conduct, and making it almost impossible to leave without consequences. All strikingly similar behavior to controversies Scientology already faces. Yeah, pretty much. Scientology is so bad as a cult that if you try and leave, they will destroy your life. Destroy your life. And basically, he's doing the same thing with this. But we have another connection here with Grant that leads us to another person connected to Turning Point USA. And that's Grant Cardone connected to Camelot Castle. You can see Grant here with Joan Rivers, who's another. Well, we'll just leave it there. Grant is one of the alumni of Camelot Castle Icons of the Future program. Grant Cardone is a firm friend of the founders and illuminating minds of the Camelot Castle project, John Mappin, Arena Mappin, and Ted Stourton. The Mappins had the great pleasure of dining with Grant and his beautiful wife, Elena, at the Cardone's palatial home. So, Camelot Castle, Grant Cardone, but it's John Mappin. Let's learn about John Mappin, shall we? My stay with John Mappin, the QAnon hotelier. It's from 2021. It says, back in 2006, I was introduced to a man called John Mappin. He was, at the time, a prominent figure in the Church of Scientology and lived in a suite of rooms with his wife, Irina, in a grim and rather dreary Victorian hotel on a stunning bit of North Cornish coastline. The hotel itself was unprepossessing, really, hovering between 2 and 3 stars, although it had a grandly auspicious name, Camelot Castle. Then in December 2019, Mappin raised a flag over his castle that had a Q on it. Mappin had literally started flying the flag for QAnon. Oh boy. Oh boy. He said, Happy New Year to all the great truth seekers throughout history. Many were sucked into the QAnon cult in 2020, although Mappin was early to the party. The rest of us only realized its power when we saw QAnon followers storming the Capitol after Trump's speech, calling for action, which he's been globally condemned. So again, we're back to the psyop of January 6th, part of the QAnon situation, and somehow that trail has managed to make all the way back to this dude. It's amazing how this connection just keeps going. When I visited the hotel, QAnon was but a twinkle in a mischievous hacker's eye. Back then, it was all pictures with Tom Cruise and other Scientology figures, including its leader, David Miscavige, I think that's how you pronounce that, and prominent believers such as John Travolta, who filled the lobby. Today, I hear a vast photograph of Donald Trump, Melania Trump, and John Mappin himself looks over a reception. Mappin is a Trump super fan. He was early to that too and has been wearing MAGA hats since before they were even red. Here's a picture straight from John Mappin himself with the Q flag above his castle, if you guys don't believe that. Is there anything else on that? No. So we've got that connection there. Meet the Q-obsessed Scientologist trying to cozy up to TPUSA and Trump. Don't worry, we're getting back to the turning point thing. Wealthy Scientologist John Mappin lives in a castle, loves President Donald Trump, and spends his time online boosting Byzantine conspiracy theories, including QAnon. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's a psyop, but what do you expect? He's a British right-wing political aficionado with ties to Trump's 2016 political or presidential campaign and one of the GOP's most powerful youth organizations. That's Turning Point. We'll get to that in just a second. On Sunday, Mappin said he met with a prominent U.S. intelligence official who told him QAnon is real. Now, we don't know who that person is, but something tells me they're connected to Flynn. A giant Q flag waves above Mappin's King Arthur-themed castle in southwest England. We talked about that. Online, Mappin frequently posts pro-Q messages to his social media accounts and boosts the name of the most popular Q community creators. What makes Mappin's remark distinct from the run-of-the-mill online QAnon chatter is Mappin's reported connections to political power players in the United Kingdom and America. Mappin generated headlines in 2018 when he hosted Turning Point USA figures Charlie Kirk, its founder and president, and Candace Owens, former communications director. And this was for the debut of Turning Point UK, TPUK. Give it up for John, Kirk told the crowd, prompting applause at the end of the event. And in 2017, Trump's son Eric Trump called Mappin before the president's inauguration to thank Mappin for his support and to invite him to visit the first family in Washington, which of course he did. He did indeed go and visit them. So now we're starting to get something interesting here, because we got Scientology, we got Camelot Castle connected to another Scientologist who's involved with Turning Point USA. Then we have the QAnon situation. Then we have the Trump connection. And then we've got Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, and Turning Point UK as well, along with it. So let's learn a little bit more about this connection to Turning Point. And this says the official launch of TP UK was the December 11th, 2018 invite-only event at the Royal Automobile Club on Pall Mall in London. The event was hosted by Johnny and Irina Mappin, Peter Southall, and Lord and Lady Plunkett, and was advertised as a gathering of political genius. Since the launch, TP UK has begun to take more formalized structure and has even been endorsed by a host of conservative politicians. Tell me if you've heard of any of these people, including Priti Patel and Jacob Rees-Mogg, as well as Nigel Farage. However, perhaps the most central figure behind the arrival of Turning Point UK is John Mappin of the Mappin and Webb Jewelry Dynasty, who not only organized the launch event in London, but also has been earmarked as the contact point for high-end donors to the UK operation. Towards the end of their talk at the RAC Club Turning Point USA, founder Charlie Kirk repeated that potential donors can talk to John Mappin or some of our other very good friends in the room. You can see them on Camelot TV Network, which is a Scientology TV thing that they do. And he's done stuff including send Trump this King Arthur sword, which you want to start getting into the King Arthur stuff. You start getting into some pretty interesting mysticism to go along with that, which we don't have time to get into, but he sent that to Trump, and that's when he went and visited Trump as well. Very interesting what's happening here. Let's learn a little bit more, shall we? This coming from the Telegraph, it says, I helped my friend Charlie Kirk start Turning Point UK, and the late Queen loved his Christian values. Pretty interesting that there's a Queen connection. This is from September of this year. It says, John Mappin last saw his great friend Charlie Kirk in May, so their relationship not only goes back in time, but has continued for a long period of time. It says they're one of the original financial backers of Turning Point UK, which we learned that as well. You can see a picture here of the Mappins and the Kirks on vacation in Jerusalem in 2019. So they got a connection there. It says, since their first meeting in 2018, when they were introduced by a mutual American friend, barely a week went by without a text message or a call between the two men. Irina and Erica had also forged a firm friendship, with the two couples even holidaying together in Jerusalem in 2019. When that mutual friend made them aware of Kirk's work, Mappin was fascinated by his dynamic Illinoisian ability to connect with young voters. I called him and said, listen, Charlie, you've got to come over and duplicate Turning Point USA in England. It says Nigel Farage had also been urging Kirk to help set up some kind of UK equivalent to Turning Point, and when Mappin convinced them to come to London in December 2018 so that he could throw him an introductory party at the RAC Club and launch Turning Point UK at the same time, the 20 or so people he had planned to invite quickly mushroomed to nearly 200. Yeah. This is Rob Burley, who's a businessman and nightclub impresario, said he wanted to give a dinner at his club with a few people, including Zach and Ben Goldsmith, who wanted to meet Charlie. And then he got a call from George Farmer. George Farmer is a British-American entrepreneur, and he's also Turning Point UK's first chairman, and was also introduced by Mappin to Candace Owens, and they got engaged 17 days after meeting at this event. Pretty interesting. George Farmer is an interesting character because not only was he the first chairman of Turning Point UK, but he was also the CEO of Parler, Remember that free speech, right-wing social media app that tried to take off? That would be George Farmer, who was CEO of that thing as well. Worth noting, 1990, Mappin discovered Scientology and became what remains today a Christian Scientologist, which, not possible. You're either a Christian or a Scientologist. You can't be both. And then if we jump down, we can also see more pictures of Mappin chilling with the Kirks as well. We'll just finish it off with this. Worth noting that John Mappin is listed in Epstein's Black Book on page 35. Epstein recorded 2 phone numbers and 1 address under the name. His main address is in London, UK, and here's the picture of John Mappin in Epstein's Black Book as well. Do with that what you will. Do with that what you will. So it seems to me, again, we've talked about this before. We're not going to go over everything. There's no reason to. Turning Point USA is not a good organization. It is there designed to get involved with the ecumenical religious movement. It's there to combine faiths together under the name of politics. And it is there in order to brainwash and manipulate children to follow into the Christian nationalist movement and follow along with the political regime, Satan's engagement for helping create this one world religion that we're seeing and creating this one world system that we have going on. Turning Point is a spearhead and all that. The actors, and I use the word actors on purpose because many of them are simply actors, and I don't mean that as they're political people playing actors or they're politicians playing. No, I mean they're just actors. Like if they weren't playing this part, they'd be on a TV screen somewhere. And so they're at the spearhead of this thing with so many actors involved that are simply there to start drawing people in, to brainwash people, to start following this political movement, which is combining all these faiths together. And Charlie Kirk was a part of that. He was raised up in that. And he's gotten influence from so many different levels, from so many different people, from so many different faiths, that he was controlled in all of this. And clearly we have a massive connection of Turning Point and Charlie Kirk to Scientology. Scientology, while it doesn't get talked about very often and isn't one of the big flashy names that gets discussed a lot, is as evil as they come. As evil as they come. I've talked about some of this in the past. I just want to pull it up just in case we're not aware of the whole Scientology thing. But I've talked about this as well. L. Ron Hubbard learned and studied and looked up to Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley is the founder of the Thelema religion, and Jack Parsons, who was a rocket scientist, was a temple leader, a Thelema temple leader, and the dude was out there, I mean, as mystical as they come. L. Ron Hubbard took much of his Scientologist teachings from these two men. Now, L. Ron Hubbard had a big relationship with Jack Parsons, and Jack Parsons introduced L. Ron Hubbard to Aleister Crowley after learning that he was such a fan of Aleister Crowley and his writings, his Thelema writings. And so this trio here is the people who really developed what Scientology was. But it goes much deeper than that I think is important, because when you look at the Scientology connections, many of its belief systems and instructions come from Gnosticism, ancient Egyptian religions, which is connected heavily to Hermeticism, Theosophy, the Kabbalah, and Thelema. So Scientology is a hodgepodge, a mishmash of all those different types of religious connections. But on the more political influencer side of things, Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard basically were created by the Tavistock Institute and the CIA. It was originally created by the Tavistock Institute, we don't have enough time. We don't have enough time. But Tavistock is part of the globalist thing. They're way up there. And it was created by Tavistock. L. Ron Hubbard was trained by the Tavistock Institute that had to do with so many different psychological and pseudo-mystic belief systems. And then the more physical side of what came eventually with Scientology came from the CIA, specifically their QBARC interrogation manual, their counterintelligence interrogation manual, which includes the Alice in Wonderland interrogation tactic, which has to do with speaking confusion to control a room and to control a person. And if you look at the training manual for Scientology, training regimen number 1 is called Dear Alice, and it has to do with the Alice in Wonderland tactic of controlling a room through confusion speech. And that's the main tactic that Scientologists use to recruit people into Scientology, is they start confusing people. You basically have to try, even if you're not the smartest person in the room, you try and present yourself as such that the person that you're speaking to just starts following your lead. That's kind of how that works on that. And so the Scientology Dear Alice training regimen is from the Alice in Wonderland interrogation manual that comes from, or the interrogation tactic, which comes from the QBARC interrogation manual, which was developed by the CIA, and it involves various psychological influence from the Tavistock Institute, which takes it from Gnosticism, takes it from ancient Egyptian religion, takes it from philosophy and the Kabbalah. The Thelema aspect of it was brought in by L. Ron Hubbard himself, who of course had a relationship with Jack Parsons from the Thelema Temple, who connected him to Aleister Crowley, who is the creator of Thelema. And Lewis Carroll's involved with that, who is a Gnostic and also a part of Theosophy. And he's the one who wrote Through the Looking Glass, Alice in Wonderland, that we see involved with that. So it's all right there, kind of in a circle, in a bubble of the connections involved with this. And that stuff right there is heavily injected into Turning Point USA. They all present it in the name of politics, which that's how they suck everybody in, because you have the right wingers and the left wingers. We all got to start fighting for our political side to save America. And that's what we hear from the pastors. That's what we hear from the podcasters. That's what we hear from the prophecy teachers, is we gotta defend the Christian principles. We gotta do everything that we can. And if that requires us to start promoting and endorsing people like Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA and the Great America Tour, which has people like Alex Jones and Michael Flynn and all these other people, if that's what it takes, then that's what we're going to do. And that's when these churches start allowing Satan to come into the church. That's when all these churches allowed Satan to start coming in, because all in the name of politics. I need you to compromise on the biblical beliefs. I need you to compromise on the ecumenicism. I need you to compromise on all these things so you can go and save your precious country that is going to get burned up in the end by God anyways. So the choice is yours. And we have everybody who goes along with this that will sit there and defend that and basically tell me that I'm an idiot for presenting such a thing. But this is how Satan works. This is the deception that I'm talking about. And we have so many people who claim that they're aware of everything that's happening right now, who are just falling right in line with every bit of this.